Welcome to this month's Schuman Talk, where we discuss issues we face in Europe today in the light of Robert Schumann's vision for a community of peoples deeply rooted in Christian values. It was on May the 9th, 1950, at 6 p.m., when the French Foreign Minister, Robert Schuman, gave a 3-minute speech in which he laid the foundation for the European House, where today 450 million Europeans live together in peace. This was, in my understanding, the defining moment of post-war Europe, for it launched a European movement for peace and unity that has led to today's European Union. And so this is why we hold this event, this Schuman Talk, each month on the 9th, and we do it at 6 p.m. To make people aware of what took place on May the 9th, 1950 at 6 p.m. And we invite guests to come and talk about issues facing us in Europe today. And our reference point is the vision that Schuman had for Europe to become a community of peoples deeply rooted in basic Christian values. Now, what Robert Schuman and others like Konrad Adenauer, Alcide de Gasperi worked towards at the end of the war was to make war unthinkable. And for most of our generation, war has been unthinkable. But it was in February 2022 when the unthinkable broke loose. And Putin broke all the rules of the international order and invaded Ukraine. And our guest tonight is someone who has been chronicling this war, Iryna Kapitonova. And I was with her just a couple of weeks ago in Kyiv there, visiting her in her school. She is, as well as an author, she's a teacher. She has translated in some very important meetings for us. We had a global online faith network prayer meeting, and she was one of the translators for that. We had people from many different nations, about between 80 and 100 people involved. And so Ira did a marvelous job of translating there, and she is a mother. And we're going to be talking about her book as well. But Ira, firstly, I just want to welcome you with us today, and thank you for being available. You've just come home from school, and I was very impressed when you showed me around your school. It's a 1 to 11 school, grades 1 to 11. And it's very strong on teaching children character, and you do this in both English and in Ukrainian. And so I want you to tell us a little bit later on about how do you manage under these circumstances to continue in this area. But firstly, welcome. And we're glad you're with us again. You have been on once before, haven't you?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for inviting.
Now, when I was with you, it was at the time of the National Independence Day on the 24th of August. And so really that's just 2 weeks ago, followed by the presidential prayer breakfast attended by President Zelensky. And about 1,000 people were there. I was there as well. Keith Kellogg, who is the special envoy for the U.S. to Ukraine, was also there. And of course, it was very quiet in terms of attacks. I think I heard one siren alarm, and I went down to the basement in the hotel where I was. There were only about 3 other people there. It wasn't taken very seriously. And of course, people in Kyiv knew that so long as Kellogg was around, they would probably be safe. Is that true? How do the people in Kyiv look at it with Kellogg being around?
Yes, I think it was during his first visit in, I believe, May or June, when we had several nights with attacks. But as soon as he came, there were no attacks. And then he came again for a week or so, and we were joking that it is Kellogg who's guarding our sleep, because we had peaceful nights, not interrupted by sirens. And as soon as he left, we had major attacks. So yeah, we know if an important guest visits our country, then we can feel a little bit more safe.
Yes, and I think there was some story going around. Uh, Tell us that story about the apartments.
Yeah, so people were joking that we are ready to fundraise and buy him an apartment in all the districts of Kyiv, because if he's there, that district will not be attacked. So we could take turns and invite him over and make a schedule of which city district gets to sleep this night peacefully.
Yes, I was thinking if he moved permanently to Kyiv, he could maybe win the Nobel Peace Prize. But anyway, as soon as he left, and I left at the same time. In fact, I was on the train out. The Norwegian Prime Minister was in the next wagon. Um, that next night, that was when I think maybe the second heaviest attack ever took place. But there's been much heavier attacks. In fact, the heaviest attack was just was it last night, the night before? Um, yeah, and I was just reading in your book. You said something about last night was the heaviest attack ever, 70 missiles. Well, what's it up to now?
The last one we had, and it was the night from Saturday to Sunday, we had more than 800 missiles and, more than 800 drones. And I don't remember the number of missiles, but the drones are up to 800 now.
Yeah, you could never imagine that that's what you were still going to be going through when you were writing. I think it was fairly early in the first year. You talked about the 70 missiles, and it would have been absolutely devastating and demoralizing for you to know that nearly 4 years on, or 3.5 anyway, attacks of 800 drones. In those days, there weren't drone attacks, and this has been one of the big developments of this war, hasn't it? Been the use of the drones in the war. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So here's a photo of the government building that was attacked. I think we have another photo as well. But the headlines the last a few days have been very much focusing on these. These are all war crimes. You know, they're just targeting civilian. Um, yeah, has the government building here, and I suppose I don't know under the rules of war where the government buildings become. I suppose they can be legitimate targets. Um, But just today, I think there was a village where pensioners were lining up, drawing their pension out in the open there, and that's where the attack came and killed some of the pensioners there. So it's just day after day after day, war crime upon war crime being committed, as you see Russians targeting with deliberate attempts to demoralize, and that's in stark contrast with the strategy that Ukrainians are using, who are pinpointing military targets and energy supply. The diesel supply depot for Kremlin was just hit, for Moscow rather, was just hit yesterday, I think it was, and other key places like that. But tell us how. What have you experienced these 2 weeks? What's life been like for you? I think you've had to be down in the bomb shelter for about 9 hours at times. And what happens during these times? Describe your feelings.
Most of the attacks, they happen at night. So in a way it's better because you are at home, you are with your family, you are together. It is up to you to decide whether you go to a bomb shelter or whether you go to a metro station and spend the night there, or you just move to your apartment hallway and sleep there. So in a way it is easier to have attacks at night. But we had an unusual day in Kyiv. I believe it was a week ago, when we had a drone attack during the day, and it lasted more than 3.5 hours, and it was during a school day. So we had to go into the basement with our kids, and 3.5 hours in a small room with a bunch of kids who are getting tired, who cannot really move around. It was really challenging. And thankfully, by now, most of the kids, they don't panic during the air raids. They know it's routine for them, so they know the procedure. They go into the basement. Only the youngest kids that we have, they would ask for an extra hug, or they would tell, "Can I hold your hand?" Because that's what usually mom does during an air raid. So I guess it was more challenging for us to live through an attack during the day. At the same time, it gave me a good perspective, because the next day at school, I felt like the day was wonderful. Even if students were disobedient, at least we did not have an air raid. Even if we did not get through the material, at least we did not have an air raid. Even if I don't know, nothing could ruin my day, because we were not in the basement. We did not have an air raid. The sun was shining. So it was a wonderful day.
Yeah. Can you tell us what do you notice the effect is on the children? How are they coping? Do they develop a resilience, or are you seeing them really traumatized? What are you noticing?
Um, of course, the war does have effect on them. And I know that we will most likely see long-term consequences of it. But at the same time, I cannot say that our kids are traumatized, because um, they really are very resilient. They look for ways to help others. They look for ways to help the military. In fact, our school was working, we have a project that all of the grades participate in. And last spring, they made small packages for the soldiers with dried fruit and nuts and some coffee bags, tea bags, so just small packets, and they give them to a volunteer who went to the front line and would distribute it at the crossroads where the soldiers are passing as they go to their positions and back. And that volunteer was approached by a soldier who asked if he has more of these, because he said these packages are perfect to be dropped by a drone into the trenches, into the positions where soldiers cannot get. Well, there is no other way to get.
Yeah.
And so they gave everything they had, and they were very happy that uh, it could be put to good use. And our kids, they were very happy that they get to help someone, and that more specifically they get to help someone who is in a dire situation and who has no other supplies, and they get to be the helping hands. So they are resilient. They come up with different jokes. They come up with different plans on how they can defeat Putin. So even today, our fourth graders, they were writing. They had to answer a question: if you could become an insect, what insect would you become and why? And we had someone wanted to be a tarantula to crawl into Kremlin and get rid of the evil minds there. And someone said that they want to be flying ants, because then they can destroy the drones. So the war is on their mind, but at the same time, um, I cannot say that they feel victimized. I feel that um, thankfully they see that they can make a difference, and they do their best in the circumstances.
Well, thank you. That's encouraging. Um, Tell me, it's been now 3.5 years, and there's been lots and lots of promises and bold statements made by Western politicians and so forth. What can you describe um, your emotions and the emotions of others around you in response to all these promises, all these actions, I think it's obvious what the responses would be towards the Russian leaders, but I'm thinking of the Western leaders um, who have often made all sorts of promises but not followed through on them.
Mm-hmm. Um, by now, I think that we stopped caring. We don't care what they promise. We know that there will be little actions following the promises. I think the lowest point for many of us was early March, after the situation in the White House between President Trump and President Zelensky, and all the I
Yeah.
guess the first attacks on Ukraine
Right.
coming from the US. That was shocking,
Hmm.
and that was really hard. At the
Hmm.
same time, um, most Ukrainians said, well, we are not ashamed of our president.
Hmm.
We know that what we're doing is right. So whatever comes, let it come. It cannot get much worse because we've already been attacked. We're already living through the war. So there's little that can surprise us. And in a way, I think it actually helps us to not rely on people. And I'm reminded by the verse from Psalm 20: some trust in chariots, some trust in horses, but we trust in the name of the Lord. And there is no, it is tempting to rely on worldly powers, but we see that all the promises fail. And the fact that Ukraine is still fighting, is still independent today, it is a miracle. And no one expected it to last this long. No one expected. Um, we all know the prognosis in the beginning of the full scale invasion. So to have Ukraine still fighting, and today in 2025, Russia controls less percentage of Ukrainian land than it did in the spring of 2022. So they are not winning. I mean, it's
Hmm.
we're still fighting, we're still resisting, and all of that gives credit to God, because none of this is possible with human. Um, with human power, especially the attack on the government building in Kyiv. They found um, the debris of the missile, but also there was a fire caused by fuel, but the explosive part did not explode. There were a few other missiles that were found in the fields, actually, one close to where my grandma lives. And still the explosive part was not exploded. So the it is amazing that we still have it is amazing that we have um, missiles that, even though they come our way, they do less harm than they could. So it is and there are more miracles like that. um, so I guess it helps us, it encourages us when we look at empty promises, when we look at the things that do not go as planned. We know that we can trust that God will take care of us.
Now, let's talk about your book, Tulips and Ashes. How did you come to start writing about that book, to start writing the book in the first place? It started off really as a diary. I'm reminded of Anne Frank's diary here in Holland, in Amsterdam. But you started doing this daily
Mhm.
diary, and what did you expect it to become?
Well, it started, the first entry that I wrote on Facebook was 2 days before the full scale invasion. And I was with my son, he was going to bed. And as I was sitting by his side, I felt like there were words in me that I had to share with people. And so I wrote a Facebook post. I just felt like I need to put it out there. And the next day I saw that lots of people were sharing it, and then after the full scale invasion, even more people started sharing it, and I started receiving messages from people all around the world asking me, are you alive, how are you doing, is what the news is saying true? And we don't know anyone in Ukraine. You're the only person we know, like, don't really know, but you are the only person we can talk to. So would you tell us what's going on? And because there were so many messages, I thought that maybe I'm obligated to let these people know what's going on here. So I started writing um, every day, and I did not expect it to become uh, a long-term thing. Well, at that time, everybody was hoping that it's a matter of weeks. But
Yeah, I remember I saw somewhere you said it was after a couple of months, I guess, somebody wrote to you and said, well, this could become a book. And you said, well, you certainly hope it doesn't become a book, that just
yes,
it'll be a pamphlet. But
yes.
it's now this thick. It's not like it's not doesn't start with the beginning and go through in chronological order. You have structured it, and we'll talk about the structure in a little bit. But it's still this thick now, and the war is
And
still
that's
going.
only from the first year of the full-scale
Yes, that's
invasion.
right. That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, when I started writing, at the same time, uh, I did not know what we could do. So it was my way of helping my country, my way of resisting the enemy. And so I decided to do my best and write every day. And later, my friends who are missionaries in Berlin with the Envision Berlin, they offered to publish my Facebook posts as a book. So this is actually a team project because they found a wonderful illustrator from Ukraine, Yulia Elkova, and they made the beautiful cover. And we actually had Stephen Jones. He was the editor of the book, and he's the one who came up with the structure. So it is a miracle. It is team effort, and it is a blessing to me.
Explain the title, Tulips and Ashes.
Mhm. When the team of Envision Berlin asked me what visual images come to mind when I think about this book, I remember the picture of tulips in front of a destroyed building in Mariupol. And it was in the first weeks of the full scale invasion, while seeing destroyed buildings, bombed buildings, was still a shock to us. And seeing tulips, seeing flowers, life come out in front of death, and you see that life is winning. You see that nothing can stop the beauty, nothing can stop what God has planned. Seeing how even tiny flowers are more powerful than any weapons. That was something that I was amazed with it. And when they asked me what images come to mind, I thought of this picture because I did not want people to think about Ukraine and think about Ukraine as a victim. I did not want people to feel sorry. I did not people to feel um, that we are to be pitied. I wanted people to know that we are fighting, we are doing the right thing. We did not invade anyone, we did not attack anyone. We're just protecting our land, and there is a lot of beauty. And actually, we saw so many wonderful and beautiful things happen when people show genuine kindness, when people just share their lives with others. And it was inspiring. And we knew that the intention of the enemy is not to just destroy our economy or our buildings. It is to destroy our lives and destroy our character. But seeing kindness win over bitterness, that gives us hope. So tulips and ashes, it's about ashes that the war brings, but tulips that still can come through.
And you unpack that with little illustrations at the beginning of each chapter.
Mhm.
some of the botanical details about tulips. Do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, so the idea came from Stephen Jones when the editor of the book, as he was reading through my entries, thinking about the best way to structure the book, he was reminded of how tulips, we see them for a brief moment of time, but they don't go anywhere. Tulips are still, they are full of life even when you don't see the bloom, the blossoms. And so he thought about the tulips, the tulip bulbs gaining power from the soil, then growing little by little, then blooming for a certain amount of time, and then seemingly dying, but only to gain more power to bloom again. So the structure of the book has similar patterns, and that's what the cycles that we go through during this war. We have hope based on what was.
Maybe we can see that slide with the structure on it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So we have hope based on what we've seen in the past. We can trust in God's faithfulness that we've seen in the past. We have experience of survival when we need to figure out what to do during blackouts, during air raids, during all the challenges that we see. We have moments when hope feels distant, when it feels like there is no way something good can come out of it. But at the same time, we find this resilience and defiance in the face of aggression, where we can say no, we resist to agree to what you're doing to us. We will keep on living no matter what you do. Then there is time of celebration, which is similar to the tulip blooming. Um, Celebration when we see God's goodness, um, where we see something good coming out of it. For example, the return of prisoners of the war, or when a new town is being liberated. We are aware how much it costs, but we know that something good can come, that it is really good. There are times when it's just lament, and um, there's no other way to say it. But at the same time, lament does not end with just tears. There is hope um, that can reach into the future. Hope that will not stop at what you see, but hope that trusts that God is in control and He will bring something good.
Now, hope is a recurring theme and a word that you're using often. Where are you drawing from your inspiration from? Obviously the Bible, but which particular parts of the Bible have you found most resourceful and hopeful for you?
I go through the book of Psalms, and it started in the first days of the full scale war, when I felt like I cannot even pray because I don't know which words to find, because all words seemed empty. But I could see, as I was reading through Psalms, they resonated with what I was feeling. So started using Psalms as my inspiration. And a lot of times, Psalms seem to fit what's going on in our life, as if it was written just for that specific day. So every day I read a psalm, and I use verses for my daily entries, verses from the Psalms for that day. And I believe it is my 8th time going through the book of Psalms. And yeah, but also in general, the Old Testament is my inspiration during these hard days, because in the Old Testament and the books of prophets, you see God as powerful, merciful, just, and loving. And that's the character of God I know, and that's the character I can trust in.
And of course, there are the different scenarios where you see God coming to the assistance of Israel in very unexpected ways. Have you drawn any parallels? Are there any particular moments in this war where you say, well, that was a real moment of grace.
Oh, I believe there are many moments like that. There are many, in the beginning of the full-scale war, where we'd see wild geese attack an airplane that was going to bomb a village, and the airplane would just collapse. Or wild animals warn our soldiers about mine traps in the positions they were approaching. So there are a lot of, there was a situation when people returned to a deoccupied village, and they had beehives. So as they opened one of the beehives, they found a mine or a bomb there that was covered with wax so that it did not explode. It was planted to explode upon opening. So when you see the nature coming to your rescue, you know that it is a hand of God. But many moments, many stories of unexplainable warnings coming to our soldiers, or um, just miracle stories. I think there are too many to share.
Well, I guess what we can really encourage people to do is actually order your book and read about them there, and that's available from Amazon and other book online bookstores, Tulips and Ashes, and there's just many encouraging stories. I think, Ira, what you've given us, you're very realistic about the situation. There are times where you despair, like the psalmist did as well. But what the Psalms teach us is that we can cry out to God with our anguish, even if we don't have the answers. We don't, um, yeah, sometimes we're just at an end. You said you just didn't have the words to express yourself, and that's where the Psalms can so often uh, give expression to our inner feelings. And I think you have indeed enabled many of us to kind of climb into the skin of a Ukrainian and understand a little bit of what you're going through. We don't understand it fully. I saw that there was an article in the Kyiv Independent. No, it was the Wall Street Journal, I think, from which was actually had sound connected to it, what it's like to experience the attack, and if you turn the sound on, you'd get the full effect. And um, what has been the scariest moment for you?
Um, it is hard to tell. um, there are, I think, in a way, the scariest moment for me was just anticipating, waiting for the beginning of this invasion, because you don't know when it's going to happen, you don't know how it's going to be. We had a few alternative plans for us. What if it happens while our son is at school? What if it happens when we are in different parts of the city? So I think waiting for it was scarier than once it actually happened. But of course, every attack is hard, because you see attacks on civilians. You see that um, children are killed in their beds. You see that people who just went to bed in the evening did not wake up, and there's no way to predict where the drone or the missile is going to hit. So um, I think it does put a pressure on us. But I think one of the things that scares me is that, or still scares me, is that the war will go beyond Ukraine, and people are unaware of it. And actually, I just read an article that if you look at what's going on in Russian school systems, where they teach kids to make drones, to shoot weapons, they are not preparing for peace. And once this war machine is on, it is impossible to stop.
Yeah.
So we have no illusions about war ending anytime soon. And we know that if it ends in Ukraine, it might just go to the Baltic countries or Poland or any other neighbor of Russia. That's and I know that we in Ukraine, in a way, I don't mean to sound arrogant, but we've lived through this enough not to be scared of many things. We are aware that our plans are in God's hands. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We know that when we say goodbye to our loved ones, we may not see them again, and this is true for every person, no matter where you are, no matter how safe you feel, because you don't know what might happen to you tomorrow. But I think that what scares me is the false feeling of security that people have in other countries, and I really hope that they will not have to experience what war is.
Thank you, Ira. How would you want to encourage people to pray?
Um, I would ask people to pray for just lasting peace in Ukraine, not just for ceasefire, but for justice to be restored, uh, for um, for Russia to stop being a threat to anyone, not just Ukraine, but for Russia to stop being a threat to any country in the world. For all the plans of the enemy to fail, and for God's truth to prevail. And that's our prayer every night as we go to bed.
Well, thank you, Ira. That's I think people listening would be very encouraged by the sense of resilience and hope that you bring, and seeing the moments for celebration, even though you're very aware of the costs, and how you're able to draw hope out of these negative situations, and the image of the tulip that you often there's a long time of the year where there's nothing above the ground, everything's below the ground, and yet you know that someday there's going to be a bloom, and that's what we're looking forward to with Ukraine. And Paul says that suffering produces perseverance, and perseverance produces hope. And so I believe it is in God's purposes that Ukraine would become a real source of hope for the rest of the world. So again, just want to recommend to order this book and devour it, read it through, and share it with others as well. Thank you, Ira, for being with us in this month's Schuman Talk. And next month's Schuman Talk in October, on October the 9th, we'll have as our guest Dr. Douglas Johnston, who was the founder of the International Center for Religion and Diplomacy. And he co-wrote a book about 30 years ago, which was very influential for me, on religion, the missing dimension of statecraft. And he's thinking along with a number of us in a project called Transform Ukraine as to what is the role really of the spiritual dimension in the rebuilding of Ukraine. And so I'm looking forward to Doug joining us in a month's time. So we'll sign off here. Again, thank you, Ira, for being with us. It's been very inspiring hearing you sharing. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.